Bitcoin is a protest against fiat money, central banks, authoritarianism.
Two years ago, my guest made the most accurate forecast for how Bitcoin would close off 2020 amongst all the popular Bitcoin pundits and advocates in the world. Max Keiser had forecasted $20,000 Bitcoin by the end of 2020. So how is he expecting Bitcoin to close off in 2021? To give his most coveted and highly anticipated Bitcoin forecast for the year. This is the show to watch if you care about Bitcoin. Welcome back. Happy New Year, Max Keiser.
I'll make this prediction for 2021.
What can you reveal about your 2021 Bitcoin forecast? Obviously higher than the last time we spoke.
Right. Yeah, well, I think it's higher. You know, it's a lot higher for 2021. Bitcoin is the cheapest asset in the world you can buy. As Paul Tudor Jones has said, it's the fastest horse in the race.
What can you reveal about your 2021 Bitcoin forecast? Obviously higher than the last time we spoke. A range, something.
Right. Yeah, well, I think it's higher. You know, it's a lot higher for 2021. We have. It's funny that the exchange between Elon Musk and Michael Saylor was that Michael Saylor said the most. Peter Schiff, of course, focused on the stupid thing that doesn't mean anything. He missed the forest for the trees. He missed the point, as he always does. Saylor said to Elon Musk, "I will share my playbook with you." Okay, that was the key phrase. In other words, Saylor is talking to CEOs all over the world.
Yeah.
And telling him how he did it, right? Because he knows that if he gets 10, 20, 30, 40 more companies to do the same thing, that Bitcoin price is going to get to where it needs to go a lot faster, right? So it's in his own self-interest. This is game theory played out amongst multi-billionaires globally, and the big losers are the central banks. I'll make this prediction for 2021. Assets like Bitcoin are becoming the go-to asset to protect yourself against, as Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy calls it, the melting ice cube on your balance sheet. Cash is losing, according to MicroStrategy's CEO, Michael Saylor, 15% of its purchasing power per year. Why would you hold on to something like that when you have a Bitcoin that's appreciating on average 200% a year for 10 years? It's a pretty simple trade once you see the raw numbers. I'm going with $220,000 per Bitcoin as a 2021 target, and that would bring us up to over $4 trillion market valuation, which I think is a good 2021 objective. You know, we were going to catch up to gold. That would bring us up to not quite half gold's valuation, but getting close to gold's valuation. I think the catalyst is going to be, as I said, a major central bank failing, plus the money printing is going to go absolutely Weimar Republic. So we're going to see that, depending on how you calculate this, the 10 to 15 trillion that was printed. Well, my first prediction was in 2011 when I said I'm looking for Bitcoin to go to 100,000. So that was that prediction is still in place from 2011. Okay, almost 10 years ago. So that's my long-standing prediction. I recently increased that to 400,000 because I now am completely confident that Bitcoin will compete with gold. So that's the macro trend. That's the multi-decade trend that we're talking about. Now, within that series of predictions, or within that series of price targets, you've got medium and short-term price targets. On the short term, obviously the run to 20,000 is key, because that would make new all-time highs. And so once it gets through 20,000, from being a long-term Wall Streeter trader myself, you know, I've been basically in the stocks, markets, and finance for over 35 years. once you see an asset like this break through the old high and make a new high, you should see a surge into an extension of, in my view, I think we'll see 28,000 on that run before we see any meaningful pullback. That's the way I see, that's the way I read this market. The track record is clear that altcoins are basically designed to steal people's Bitcoin. So you can't really argue against that point. There's only been theft of Bitcoin. That's the only reason altcoins have really existed. DeFi is just the flavor of the month. You know, remember a couple of years ago it was ICOs, and before that, you know, there's always the invention of new things coming down the pike, but for people to stay focused on Bitcoin is a primary thing that must be emphasized. And you've got a lot of activity in these various altcoin markets that can really be destructive to somebody's portfolio. You know, with Link, of course, they had the Winklevoss twins on with Dave Portnoy, and they talked about it. The price jumped up. People kind of got FOMO'd in, and now it's dropped 20%, right? So people should not be wasting their time trying to day trade the altcoin market. Just buy Bitcoin and hold it. That's the one thing you can do for yourself. Don't try to time the Bitcoin market, the altcoin market with all these different coins. And because we know from the last 8-9 years that there's a very it's very destructive to people's portfolios. There's just so much has been lost trading these altcoins. And for the I would say 99.9% of people who buy Bitcoin, just to understand Bitcoin is a huge task that will take up a tremendous amount of their time, that they should just focus on that. Don't try to dig into the minutia of every coin that comes down the pike. And so I stand by my statement. So far, every coin that's come along has been good at stealing people's Bitcoin. That's pretty much been the only use case. Bitcoin is the only thing that's not in a bubble. Bitcoin is trading at a discount to the amount of criminality that the central banks are involved with, the fiat money that's sloshing around in the system. It's the cheapest asset in the world right now at $23,000, $24,000 a coin. It's incredibly cheap. And the risk it's gotten less risky at 24,000 than it was even at $10. The demand is going, the demand's going higher, right? All these huge money folks are coming in to Bitcoin. Then the supply is shrinking. For example, there's 900 Bitcoin a day that are created, and the demand is over 4,000 a day. So that should tell you something right there. If you look at the exchanges, there's Bitcoin, kind of a snapshot of how many Bitcoin are circulating or in existence, being moved around. That is shrinking rapidly because institutions are taking Bitcoin. They're gobbling up that Bitcoin. We're going to enter a Bitcoin shortage. So a couple of things we haven't seen, we're going to see in 2021. We're going to see gap pricing in terms of price discovery. So, okay, it's 36, 37,000. Once you get up above 40,000, that panic buying from institutions comes in. You could see 42,000, and then the next print be 44,000. Right? You're going to see.
Is it a straight up road to 220,000, or is there going to be major corrections along the way?
Well, like we just saw a 20% correction. I think we're going to see 10, 20% corrections all the time. And I don't know, I wouldn't say that this is where we end the year either. Probably this 220,000 number, probably you're going to see that in October, November will be the high of the year. If you look historically to how the Bitcoin's traded versus the halvings and the demand and the difficulty adjustment and the mining industry and the acceleration of the technology in the mining industry and how efficient miners are, the cost of electricity, and probably the one asset in the world now that's undervalued that's not even very close to getting into a valuation that it should be commensurate with the rest of the markets would be Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the cheapest asset in the world you can buy. As Paul Tudor Jones has said, it's the fastest horse in the race. Paul Tudor Jones doesn't make a huge statement. He said that the Bitcoin price is mispriced. He said the Bitcoin price is, whenever you see something as mispriced as Bitcoin, he gets excited to see that. And what he means by that is what I've just said, essentially, is that everything else pretty much is in a bubble. Bitcoin is one of the only assets probably that's not a bubble. It's the most undervalued asset probably in the world today. Bitcoin attracts a lot of greedy people who want to make money trading on Bitcoin, but as they are, they're defunding central banks, and they're defunding fiat money, and they're defunding the nation state. So it's a very interesting technology that turns greed into the hardest money ever known in the human history. So the greedy folks, we need the greedy folks. People come for the greed, they stay for the revolution. The people in Argentina that are now on the Bitcoin lifeboat are very happy that they got on the Bitcoin lifeboat. And these are people for whom buying gold would be difficult. Gold is hard to transport. Gold and silver are very difficult to move around. If you're trying to leave the country, if you want to get out of a country that's under stress, it's going to be almost impossible to take your gold and silver with you. Where Bitcoin gives you the freedom to move, it gives you financial sovereignty. It gives you all these benefits that suddenly, instead of being in a place of despair, you're in a place of hope. And that's a very big difference in somebody's life to make a transition from I'm in a total shithole of despair to being I am hopeful that I can get out of this and thrive. And that can be available only through Bitcoin. Nothing else gives you that. Well, Tether's part of the Bitcoin ecosystem, and it shouldn't really be separated meaningfully from the trends that are going on at Bitcoin. And as far as Asia and China moving money out of the country, taking the quote Bitcoin Express, this should be celebrated, as it will be in all countries everywhere, because the nation state as we know it is dead. The nation state won't survive the next 10 or 15 years, because the nation state only survives to the extent that it can print its own money and then enforce people against their will to accept that money. Now, for the first time with Bitcoin, we've separated state from money. So that now we have individual sovereignty, and people are not going to be, people are going to go to places that appreciate their wealth. If you have any wealth, and why live in a country that doesn't respect your wealth? Why not just take your money, get a 24-word seed phrase, and go somewhere where you got some respect for your wealth, and the government's not there to harass you. If people are unhappy in China, if people are unhappy in America, if people are unhappy in Canada or wherever, they should leave immediately and take their wealth with them, with Bitcoin, and let's get rid of these nation states, because they've become no longer useful. They're outdated. Tether is just it's part of the ecosystem. It's a way to insulate against some fluctuation risk and volatility risk. When you're moving between currencies, you're parking fiat in a Tether and then moving it into a Bitcoin, etc. So it's just part of the back end of the global infrastructure that is Bitcoin. I don't have any problem with it.
What can you reveal about your 2021 Bitcoin forecast?
Completely confident that Bitcoin will compete with gold. So that's the macro trend. That's the multi-decade trend. Just buy Bitcoin and hold it. That's the one thing you can do for yourself. Bitcoin is the cheapest asset in the world you can buy. As Paul Tudor Jones has said, it's the fastest horse in the race. Where Bitcoin gives you the freedom to move, it gives you financial sovereignty, and take their wealth with them, with Bitcoin, and let's get rid of these nation states.